To the panel on showmanship, you will note probably that the names on this panel are very different than the names you've seen on the panel for showmanship panels in the past. One of the comments we've had to the executive committee on the critique forums has been criticism of showmanship panels as being showing off panels. It's also been approached to us that it's fine and dandy for wonderful callers to show what they do, but what can I do to do these things? It almost that we need a showmanship panel for the personality undeveloped. Well, part of what we're going to look at today is showmanship styles in the classic sense, that is, in the approach of singing calls, and other things that apply to showmanship that aren't evident in other aspects of the square dance calling. The panel that we have in front of you here are from Germany, Al Stevens, who is also a caller coach. Yes. John Kaltenthaler, my next trick, yes, John Kaltenthaler from Pennsylvania, another caller coach. One of the persons who's been most respected in this activity for such a long time, Jerry Helt. And I'm Mike Jacobs. What we're first going to do here is, instead of taking live performances, we're going to go Memorex. We're going to go back and look at some of the singing call performances on record that we've had from our past, both present living people and people that have passed away, but have always made those indelible performances that put themselves in our minds. I'm going to take a look at a number of their performances and talk about what they did to make this performance memorable. So to start off with, we're going to take a look at a couple of classic singing call developments, and Al Stevens will handle that.
Thank you, Mike. Am I set, sir? He just unlocked the arm so that I can... as Mike said, this is not a panel on show-offsmanship. This is a panel on showmanship. And what we had envisioned was to go back into the past and take some performances that are on record for demonstration purposes and show you how other callers have used not only the music but their own unique style in achieving an end result. The first one that I'd like to put on demonstrates quite well how you can go from normal to a dramatic build-up at the very end. I'm going to play the opener, and then I'm going to try to get as close to the closer as I can. And I think you'll be able to see the difference in how this particular song is handled. Not so much in by the way the person shows off or whatever, but he just uses certain techniques that we'll discuss and analyze later after we're done, okay? The name of the song, by the way, is Yankee Doodle Boy. There's probably only one other caller around that was around when this was originally done. And I'm not going to... No, sir. And it was done by the late Sam Mitchell. And here's the way Sam handled the opener.
Hey, the poor little lady's promenade, go once around that ring. Come on back and box and add and swing. Well, you join those hands on a circle the ring. Left Allen man, weave the ring. Weave in and weave out around, and when you meet...
You notice there's very little holding of notes, very little vibrato. It's just simply a very plain performance.
Promenade a lady fair, right on home I sing. Dancing with a Yankee Doodle Boy.
That was the way Sam started the record. And then, of course, he progresses through the figures twice for the heads, and he hits the middle break and starts to loosen up a little bit. Then he hits the two figures for the sides, and then comes the climax.
That girl in promenade, promenade, a lady fair, right on home I sing, dancing with a Yankee Doodle boy. Hey, four little ladies, hit the road and go, girls, go. Come on back and box and add and swing. Well, you join those hands, gonna circle the ring. Left alum man, weave the ring. Weave in and
notice the way he uses harmony and melody.
Lady fair, right on home I sing, dancing with a Yankee Doodle boy, dancing, oh Yankee Doodle boy.
Yeehaw.
Now, your vocal range may not be as dramatic as Singing Sam's. However, the key to this number was not his ability to vocalize, but the energy he put in the performance. You know, we've all seen ER, and the classic problem on ER is when the heart monitor shows the flat line. It's the worst way to have showmanship is to constantly have a flat line. You want to see the variance in what's going on. And you notice that Singing Sam provided that from the initial start till they finally raised to the crescendo that he proved there.
Moving right along, the second record that we would like to put on for comparison is a record that was produced on the rhythm label by Wade Driver. And we'll see the way Wade handles the same opener, and we'll tap dance to the closer as well, okay? The name of the song is It's All Right With Me. It's on rhythm.
Back home and swing that lady around. Join your hands, circle left, go walking around the ring. Left alum man and we. It's the wrong time at the wrong place. Do the do-side do promenade her.
Straight.
It's not her smile, but such a lovely smile that it's all right with me.
Pretty much straight. All the way through. The first opener is designed to do that, break the ice. Of course, I must also inject at this point that recording artists understand that the only part that gets on the tape is the opener and the first figure for the heads. So you've got to be almost as straight as you can to allow people to hear the music, hear the melody. And then you can go ahead and do your tap dancing later on and come up with the dramatic ending like Wade so graciously does. I missed it. Trade the wave.
Go around your ring. It's not her smile, but such a lovely smile that it's all right with me. They go walking round, you know. They're gonna get back home and swing the lady, go round, you know. Join your hand and circle left. They go moving around the ring. Left out a man and weave that ring. Well, it's the wrong time and it's the wrong place. No side doing promenade that lady home. It's not her smile, but such a lovely smile that it's all right with me.
I said,
yes, it's all right. It's all right with me.
Notice the energy level difference between the first chorus and the very last. The hardest problem that we face as entertainers is, unlike every other entertainer who only has to sing 2 or 3 choruses of the number, we're stuck with 7. If Wade was to have started the record like he ended the record, he would have had no place to go for 6 choruses. So the concept of something other than a flat line, of some type of build, of some type of exercise that makes each different, allows us to get away with 7 choruses of a song. You know, other than 99 bottles of beer on the wall, we tend not to do lots and lots of choruses of normal songs.
The third one.
That's on Gran. Yeah.
Gran.
Which you might find on top or FTC, depending upon what version you got printed with.
The third one that we'd like to throw out for comparison, Ron Libby did a recording on the Red Boot label. Don Williamson will appreciate that, called Danny Boy. And we would like to show the contrast that Ron uses from opener to the crescendo or the closer. You'll find that it's a little bit different than what we've demonstrated so far. We'll tell you why.
Sides face, grand square. Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling. From glen to glen and down the mountainside. Four ladies chain, you turn chain and back and promenade. Yes, 'tis you must go, and I must buy.
He deliberately understates the beginning. It's not even just the norm that Sing and Sam and Wade show. He actually underscores it and develops it down to the point so that any build becomes dramatic. Which means then that if you don't have a great vocal range, by understating the beginning of a singing call, you can actually make a dramatic build when you don't have that far or that much ability to be able to go.
I must stay side space, grand square. But should ye come when spring is on the meadow, and all the flowers are hushed, and what we do? Four ladies chain, and you chain them back and promenade. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
When I grow up, I want to be a Mercedes-Benz. Notice the difference between the He just handed me his keys to his Mercedes-Benz. Thank you, Jerry.
Not to just be featuring people that have great voices, and this is nothing against the next caller. Lee Common has, across the years, had several polyp operations, has had things done to his voice, did not have a great range to begin with, but he developed a style, a panache, a way of interpreting singing call that makes it acceptable. So that approaching and controlling material is just as much a key to the performance as placing the energy in it. This is Young at Heart on Red Boot.
Sides, face, grand square. Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart.
He's at least staying in rhythm.
Or as rich as you are, you're much better by far if you're young at heart.
He's holding the notes he can hold.
Left down in your corner, go home and do something.
But the piece has an energy and life of his own, and he's not getting in the way of it.
Here's the best part. You'll have a head start if you are among the very young at heart. Heads promenade all halfway around that ring, now the side square through.
It's almost lackadaisical, but that's a style too. I mean, it is the wrong approach to doing any singing call is to have it as a flat line. 7 choruses of the same material is just ungodly to hear, to dance to. But hearing some kind of variance, hearing some kind of approach, hearing some kind of interpretation is the showmanship style that sells the singing call. And it's also sometimes the record that dictates that style and approach. We take a song like My Way to do it as a jump up and down number like Sam did on Yankee Doodle Dandy would be the wrong approach. Here's Dick Bear's approach as a recording artist on My Way.
Circle to the left, and now the end is near, and so I face that final curtain.
Think back to the classic singers you remember hearing, whether it's Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, or any of those artists, you find them holding very few notes.
Come home and then you swing.
They're the ones that are in their warm comfort range that then make you comfortable.
And more much more than this.
You don't hear Dick holding
I
the
did
notes
it
here,
my
except for that one,
way.
which accentuated the lyrics of the song. This song of itself, by its own lyrics, sells itself.
Square it through, you
And can get very emotional responses on the part of the dancers out on the floor. The key is for you to make sure that you don't get in the way of it.
Girls trade.
Speaking of not getting in the way, one of our greatest performers was Earl Johnson. Earl Johnson was dynamic on all singing calls, and yet he was a smart enough caller to know when to not get in the way of the music. Here's Green River on Grin.
Side space, grand square, go!
If you're going to have all this wonderful music with the dancers dancing grand square, get out of the way. We do this sometimes with some of the other stuff, and some of the things we've seen recorded lately with drum solos, unfortunately, also have callers tending to want to make comments and so forth. Earl was smart enough to get out of the way.
Oh, Green River on the good ship, rockin' right. Now 1 and 3 do a
Might also inject here that at this period in time, this was dynamic music.
pass through and tag the line, do a clover leaf and time.
You hear him getting excited and up and energy level going, so he proves he can do it here. The key was the music was good enough for the grand square to get out of the way of it.
Swing that corner, lady, and promenade.
And that occurs on the middle and final break as well. Another different approach that we can use in singing calls is the availability now, particularly in the last number of years, of choruses on wish I had fingernails, on choruses on the other side of records. The chorus can provide a certain dynamic to a singing call performance that isn't available on some singing calls, on other singing calls. Having the chorus, particularly with numbers that were recorded by groups, allows you to flesh out the sound of the performance, particularly if it was a number that was made famous by a group. It sounds always a little sick to me of having a caller try to carry off the performance of a group.
Flush out what?
Flesh out. Flesh out. I think I wanted flesh out, come to think of it. Thank you. Although, it's interesting that when I looked up showmanship on the internet, and particularly stage showmanship, I found 58,000 entries on the websites. 45,000 of them had to do with animal husbandry. So, just in case, keep in mind there's a visual aspect too. This is The Shadows of Love by Daryl Clendenin on Chinook.
Circling shadows, I'm here waiting in the shadows. Let down a man you know, walk back do-side do. Let down a man in the corner, wheel around that ring. I know someday,
Even if you're not capable of holding the note of I know, the chorus does.
promenade you see till you do. I will wait for you in the shadows of love that gets square through.
And so it can be your best ally on the record. I find that I tend to use a lot of these when I have laryngitis like I have right now. I can't hold a note. I can get the material out, and I let the chorus carry it, not myself. That's Chinook.
Chinook.
The one other thing to note about this is that if you will think back to recordings that you may have heard in growing up in the 60s, 70s, and there were songs that were done by people who were not singers at all. Lauren Green doing the theme song from Bonanza comes to mind. But you will notice on all those songs, there were choruses, they carried the song. So if you find yourself with a limited range, if you find yourself that not having an idea where to go on a particular showmanship aspect, the chorus can help carry you. Sail Away is another great example. It's on rhythm with a fine chorus on it that can help carry the record for you. And that's a number that was made popular by a group. Well, now you have the group on the record so that it fleshes out your performance. And not flushes it. Fisherman's Luck is a unique song that we have going on right now in square dancing. The first Fisherman's Luck was this number done by Marshall Flippo, called The Auctioneer.
Now join up hands and make a ring, then circle to the left like everything, then reverse trail along in single file. The girls step out and take a back track and turn them with the right. When you get back, a left dial a man, then we the ring a while. Now pretty soon he began to see how the auctioneer talked rapidly. Do side do, then promenade from here.
He said, oh my, it's do or die. I've got to learn that auction cry. Gotta make my mark and be an auctioneer. Beside the town, you gotta turn that star, go once around to the same old tube and do the right left through. Now dive through and pass through and swing through, and then those boys trading promenade that Jane. $25 bid and a $30 30 bill. Give me 30, make it 30 bid. Call me $30 bid. Give me 30. Who did I make a $30 bid?
The rhythm of the piece is established. The lyrics are there. You don't really have to be an auctioneer to do this number. You just simply have to learn the lyrics of the song. The song sells itself. And so the song can sometimes create the showmanship atmosphere without you actually going through vocal gymnastics to be able to come across with an effective showcased performance.
That last was on Blue Star, the auctioneer.
One, probably.
1825. The number is BS. 1825. Oh. That was the old one.
Novelty performances,
that was also BS.
Numbers can also provide a showcase type aspect, whether it's stuff with unique lyrics or whether it's material that provides an occasion for you to do an accent. Perhaps one of the best performances of that was Dick Jones on Donegal.
An element left, an element bar, go right and left your star. The men wheel in an element bar, oh, got an element bar. You shoot the star, go forward two, go right and left and bend. Hey, element bar, the men wheel in, you back it on up and bend. You shoot the star, go right on a friend, hand over hand. When you meet your calling there, you're gonna promenade. You promenade, go round the hall, you promenade them all. Home you go, settle on down, back and Donegal.
The key to doing an accent is to find key words that convey the aspect of it. There is a linguist that has been a vocal coach for many movie stars across the years, and you've seen him in minor character roles. He's a tall, blonde-haired gentleman named Robert Easton, who you've seen in hick roles, you've seen him do ethnic roles, Swedish accents. He does a wide variety of accents. When he teaches how to do an accent, what he does, he picks a key word and then finds the phonetic equivalent to give you a different accent. For instance, he takes the phraseology of stark naked. Now, to produce three different accents, he has you pronounce the words as stock, S-T-O-C-K, as stack, S-T-A-C-K, and stork, S-T-O-R-K. So that to get a southern accent, you get stork naked. Or to produce a New England accent, you get stack naked. Or to produce a New York accent, it's stock naked. And so what happens is that just by finding an alternative pronunciation of word can help to produce the accent or the effect of having an accent. And Dick does that later on in this number.
Hand over hand, oh, when you meet your colleague there, you promenade the ring. Well, you promenade around the hall, promenade a mile. Home you go, settle on down, back and down.
All they did was take all the A sounds and magically elongate them to give the effect of being an Irish accent. And he throws in Irish words like Blarney, Holling to give you that effect. Is he really showing an Irish accent? No. But it gives you that impression that it exists.
Turn to the corner, go, swing your corner, lead around, and then you promenade. Well, you promenade, go to.
That's the Barry Fitzgerald approach.
Home you go, settle on down.
If you've seen Going My Way, you've heard that. That record is on top. It's back to Donegal, and there have been a number of different versions of it put out. This particular one is ancient too, 25204, but there are later versions that were repressed out of it. Yes.
It is a 6/8 rhythm.
And which Jerry will impart later on in this conversation. The final thing we're going to show is examples where we turn it over to Jerry and to John, is Barry Medford's performance on the Dance Ranch label of Sweet Misery. This is perhaps what I think is the classic performance of build of a singing call. He does everything in the course of the singing call. Utilizes the music, underplays it, does vocalizations, features music, you name it, he does it in the course of the singing call. and it is the classic build. Notice how understated it is.
Promenade, go inside the ring. Come back, swing your mat around.
Barely speaking in
Join
pitch.
your hand, circle, let it go, walking round and go. Left column man and we the ring. I still love her.
Now, certainly the construction of the music helps as it builds instrumentation.
Promenade. All the love's gone, just like an old song that nobody wants to hear again. Head couples cross trail.
Notice he's hawking the finger.
Make a line. I move up to the middle and I come on back, you know. Half square through
That was the first note he held.
swing old corner there.
Still underplaying
Left column man and we the ring. All those heartaches keep marching in 2 by 2. Do, sa, do, and promenade. Well, there's someone I think of when I'm lonely. Someone I call sweet misery. Head couples cross.
He actually talks the figure.
Just one, make a line. I move up to the middle and I come on back, you know.
Starts to increase
Halfway
energy.
through trade by swing the corner waiting there. Left column man and we the ring. All those heartaches keep marching in 2 by 2. Do, sa, do, and promenade. Well, there's someone I think of when I'm lonely. Someone I call sweet.
He backs away and uses music,
Four ladies, you promenade.
which is music also good to
You wanna
feature.
come back home, swing your man around. Join your hands, circle left, go walking round, go left column man and weave around that ring. All the love's gone,
Changes
just
words.
like an old song. A do-ba-do-sa-do, and then you promenade. Well, there's someone I think of when I'm lonely. Someone
The music helps in here by modulating.
misery. Side couples, you cross trail.
But he also
round
brings that
one,
forth in his
make a
voice.
line. I move up to the middle and I come on back, you know.
Now he's starting to add vocal
trade
traits.
by swing old corner there. Left column man and weave around that ring. All those heartaches, they keep marching in 2 by 2. Do, sa, do, and promenade. Well, there's someone I think of when I'm lonely. Someone I
Now,
call
the
sweet
problem he has at this point, he still has
Side
one
couples
partner
cross
changed.
trail and walk around one, you make
He
that
actually
line.
backs it down
I
just a
move up to
smidge.
the middle and I come on back, you know. Half square through trade
not stepped it
by
up again. He's
swing the
holding his
corner
own
way
where he
there. Left column man and we the ring. Go in and out around. Hey, and when you meet your girl, do, sa, do, and promenade. Oh, in her arms I
Notice
was
just that
in
little
heaven.
backing off to feature
But
the
heaven
final highlight.
wasn't meant for me. 4 boys, you promenade. You're gonna come back home, swing your man around. Join your hands, circle left, go walking round, go and then left column man and weave around that ring. Oh, those heartaches keep marching in 2 by 2. Do, sa, do, and promenade. Oh, there's someone I think of when I'm lonely. Someone I call sweet misery. Swinging home, I've got the misery.
6 choruses of this were under the capability of any caller in this room because it was mastery of the music and there's a strategy to the build. You may not have been able to do all the vocalization tricks in the very last part of it. At the same time, the music increased to the point where you might have been able to utilize the music as your ally at that point in time. But any caller in this room could do what Barry did in the first 6 choruses and showcase any individual piece of music. At this point, I'd like to introduce John Kaltenthaler, who's going to talk about some other aspects other than the singing call approach to showmanship.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Al. One of the things that was in your program, if you read the description of this particular session, was that we're going to be dealing with singing is definitely a part of showmanship, but the other aspects would include choreography, communications, and entertainment. But there's certainly a lot more to showmanship than just those 3 or 4 words. One of the sessions on showmanship that we did several years back, I remember Jack Berg saying, psychologically, we as callers, we as entertainers, must remember to get ourselves psyched up. It's almost as if the club president introduces yourself and you start to walk out on your stage, you say, it's showtime. Because that's the attitude we must have as individuals. It's showtime. We are the showman. How do we do this? What techniques are available to us? We've heard a number of singing call techniques, use of music. Not everybody is endowed with a fantastic voice, yet callers have learned to overcome their weaknesses in that area. When he played the record of Lee Cotman is not known as a singer. That's an understatement if I've ever made one. And I don't mean that with any disrespect, but the point being that he made up for his lack of musical ability in some other areas, and he concentrated on the choreographic aspect of the showmanship. But you, as individuals, have many opportunities in showmanship as well. Certainly, the theming of a tip is an opportunity of choreographic showmanship. Sometimes it's difficult for dancers to recognize what your theme was, and we used to do is super school with Jim Mayo, Bill Peters, Herb Egender, and I were the staff, and Bill was quite the choreographer, and he said, well, here's one to think about, and he did a Ferris wheel to a right and left grand, and the dancer's reaction was, okay. It totally missed what Bill was trying to get across. That here Bill thought, man, this is a great thing. Now, choreography for a surprise ending is a form of showmanship. If you do a fan the top to a right and left grand, different. Is it difficult? Not necessarily if you set it up. One of the sessions that's going to take place here, Tony Oxendine and Jerry Junk. And Tony was talking about some of the things that he will take maybe a whole tip to set up to do the ending, the one with all the pizzazz. That's a form of showmanship. Can we do that as individuals? Absolutely. If we have a routine that we use in order to have a get out at home, that's a form of showmanship. Certainly programming through music is an overlooked form of showmanship because a lot of callers don't think of musical selection. Not only the records, but the orchestrations of the records and the techniques of the musicians that made them, how you can use that to program the mood of the dancers. If you like 4/4 music, that's one form that some people think is great. Others say it's got no place in square dancing. If you have a record with 6/8 timing, that's going to create a different feel. If you have too many 4/4 pieces of music, it's not going to go over with the dancers. If you have music which is in a minor key, psychologically, that's a downer. And anytime you hear a minor key record, you'll see that it always ends up with a major chord, which is a lifting up. That's part of showmanship because that's what you want to do. You want to be able to use your tools and your techniques to grab hold of the dancers and create a mood, a feeling, whether it's of euphoria or up or what have you. I remember Cal Golden one time made the mistake of telling a story which I thought was rather amusing I'd like to share with you. He had one of his dancers that hadn't danced in a while, and she came back to the dance and said, where you been? I missed you. She said, well, I had a baby, and it's your fault. He said, wait a minute. She said, yeah, the last dance that I went to, you ended up with this real dreamy music. And when we got home, I couldn't sleep. I had to miss a few things of dancing while I had my baby. And Cal felt immediately relieved, but the point being that he created a mood with that. Lee Helsel used to end with a light in the window. And any of you that ever danced to Lee Helsel know that that was a great mood setter. You could do that and you could deliver that from a different way that it was originally recorded on the old time. Most old time. What record was that on, Jerry? Light in the Window. I can't recall. I have a record and I guard it with my life because you can't get it anymore. But the point being that the way it doesn't have to be the way the artist did it. You don't have to sing the way Dick Jones does, Slanch to Donegal or what Old Donegal. And all of these things are, Western Jubilee, I think is what it was, Betsy. Thank you. There are so many different techniques available. Mike was talking about talking, the figure. A lot of times you get a record that has very high ranges or very low ranges. What do you do if you don't have a voice range that lets you do that? You have to figure out a way to overcome that, and that's a part of your showmanship. The record Some Broken Hearts Never Mend has about a 2-octave range. Not all callers have 2 octaves that they can deliver with the command. If you don't have the low part of your range that gives crispness and clarity to the command words, you failed as a caller, haven't you? So you have to figure some way of overcoming that. Talking is one of the ways that you can do that. Another way is harmony. Whether that's harmony with a pre-recorded voice, as the examples that they showed you, or whether you do this with another caller, or whether there's one that you particularly like and you record it and then sing harmony with yourself, you don't have to be working with another caller to present interesting harmony. Some callers will use their wife to sing with them. I will tell you this up front, that a woman caller and a man caller singing the same notes an octave apart is not harmony. Even though some people would have you believe that that's a harmonic presentation. It's not. And harmony is where you're singing not the melody note, but one that is in consonance with that note. It may be a third up, it may be a third down, it may be some other place that it doesn't create a dissonance or an unpleasant sound, and harmony is a form of showmanship which you were able to do. Other aspects of calling relate to showmanship as well. Certainly proper timing, and some of these examples which you heard did not give correct timing for the grand square. It was kind of wait a couple of beats and we'll be along in a minute, don't hurry for us. And the figures don't always time out. Well, what do you have to do if you're going to think of showmanship if the record, the way it is written, doesn't match the number of beats required to do the figure, or there's too much music and not enough action? You have to have 2-beat, 4-beat, 6-beat, and 8-beat fillers, and 2-beat, 4-beat, 6-beat, and 8 beats deleters, so that the dancers get the proper timing. Correctly, we should be able to give the grand square, so we say sides face grand square. The first beat of the musical phrase allows the dancers to dance on that. Dick Ledger was a fanatic on that. Everybody that I know gives lip service to teaching timing. Not everybody can do it. And if you think about proper timing, and if you think about the tempo that we play music at today's environment, when you're calling for the geriatric set comes to mind. I'm there too, Bubba. I must share one thing with I've told some of you, but I must share this with you. In 1985, I was in Australia doing some caller clinics, and the Australians have a tendency to call at 132 to 136. And we say to them, guys, slow down. Invariably, the callers say, our dancers won't let us. Well, we were over there at the mini lab later on, and the staff was Jack Lasry, John Jones, Jim Mayo, Ernie Kinney, and me. And we were playing at about 126 to 128. And there were 85 squares on the floor, and you say, go forward and back. Everybody went up together and back. You say a star through, every hand in the place went up at the same time. And the dancers came up to us and said, oh, we love your tempo. Can't you get our callers to slow down? You sometimes wonder if those dancers are the same dancers that their callers were talking to. One other thing that happened on Australia, in giving this clinic, I said to this one caller, I said, do you ever notice when you call that the dancing is just a little bit ragged, and that when I put my record on and slow it down, the dancing smooths out? Oh, yeah, John, but you don't understand. When you play the record that slow, your timing has to be perfect. And I said, I think you've got it. He doesn't understand to this day what it was that he said. But it is absolutely true that good timing is certainly a part of showmanship. Good choreographic flow is certainly a part of showmanship. the music that you select. And Clark Baker is going to talk about one of the sessions on different music for use of hoedowns. We hear over and over again, and again it's another thing to which we give lip service. Dancers want variety, not complexity. How many times do we have to keep saying that from the microphone? Give the dancers variety, don't give them complexity. I mentioned harmony, and Frizella is going to be giving a session on how to yodel. If any of you have ever listened to Bill Peters on the subject of yodeling, he says, I hate yodeling. Yodel, yodel, yodel. And he says, it's interesting, if I'm in the room and a caller gets up to call and uses yodeling, do you think the dancers look at the caller? They turn around and look at Peters to see what reaction. Who gets the mileage out of a caller doing the yodeling? Bill Peters. Bill Peters gets it. And I think Chinook just put out a record, didn't they? Said you don't have to yodel to be good. Good callers don't have to yodel. Well, sometimes there are certain things you can do in a form of showmanship which are based upon the title of the record. After I'm old and gray and start losing my hair is one of my favorites. Think about it. I've been bald for so many years that Freddie married me because she could see who it was at the front of the church by the fact that I had no hair. Harmony is a technique which is available to everybody, and I think it is overlooked as far as your musical selection. There's a lot of good music out there. And one of the things we as callers have a tendency to do is to become motor mouths. How many times do you hear callers call teacup chain and step you through every bloody turn that you have to go through? Why can't we do as Mike suggests? Get out of the way. Dancers are going to have a great time if we as callers can just stay out of their way. Proper showmanship enables us to do that. Most of the techniques that you talk about in caller schools, timing, tempo, choreographic smoothness, proper body flow, proper positioning, all of those techniques are part of your showmanship. But above all else, remember that psychologically you must get ready by saying to yourself, it's showtime. Here's Jerry Helt.
Tough act to follow. Had a good record review. What do I do at this point, folks? Help me, help me, help me. When we were asked to do the showmanship part of the program, I made a list of several things, 5 things to be specific. Visual showmanship, verbal showmanship, musical showmanship, choreo showmanship, and voice showmanship. And we've talked a lot about music and choreograph and all this sort of stuff. Let's go a step further with it. I started some showmanship today in this room. You probably don't know about it. Would everybody stand up that I shook hands with today and greeted you in this room, please? I apologize to the other folks. You were late, yes. So I had a chance to say hello to you, to say something very positive to you, probably. And I set a pattern. I would call that showmanship. I think that's under the heading of showmanship. I planted some seeds. I'm going to plant some more seeds right now to kind of bring the group together. I did an individual communication with you, which I would consider showmanship. You guys okay back here? Got nickels going over everything. Okay, let's, under the heading of visual showmanship, I think any caller who's worth his salt should present himself looking nice, groomed, decent clothes on. It's always nice to have somebody in front of you who looks good. I think we all agree on that. I don't think we'd challenge that at all. Personal hygiene with a caller. is very essential. And that would be under the heading of showmanship. If I walked in with garlic on my breath and it went through the system and come out the speakers, it would be very bad. This can happen. Al told me that happened to him one night. Alcohol's another one. I have a feeling that I'm a little, to do this job, you have to be a little mentally off, just a wee bit. If I have a drink and somebody catches that on my breath, they're going to say I'm drunk. So I would suggest anybody who's a caller not to have that drink before you get up to call. Whether it affects you or not, don't do it. Because you're going to talk with somebody and they're going to say, guy's been drinking. I can smell a little pot on his clothes, too. So that's something to think about. You should meet the people. Any good showman should meet the people. I like to get to the door and meet people when they come in and say hi to them. I met some nice people today. I even seated some people out here that I like. They're nice people. Very positive. Plant the seeds. If somebody has a nice piece of jewelry on or they look good, say something about it. It pulls that group together. And what you're doing with any group is to individually touch those people somehow and then pull them together as a group and play with that mass personality. And you do that by doing squares with them. It's a team effort. You're pulling the group together into squares. You're pulling them together to do that little number. Okay? Now, you can do that musically. You can do that verbally. How's the buffaloes doing? Lots of heads nodding. Some are sleeping. Buffalo what? Wings. Buffalo wings. Very good. Being very positive with a group and very positive with a person on an individual basis, I think, is very important. Never be negative. Never get up to a group and be negative with them. And it's easy to do. I have kind of 3 rules, and I think this probably holds true with most callers. There are 3 things that I never discuss or get involved with a group. Numero uno is religion, sex, and politics. Those 3 things should never enter a square dance hall. Callers should never discuss those, not on a general basis. And I think that keeps it unique in our activity that we are not involved in that part of. I hear callers get up and tell a political joke right at the beginning of the evening, and I really resent that. A lot of people resent that. Not good taste. You should inject humor within a group, which is within showmanship. And again, we think of keeping it clean, not bad jokes, dirty jokes, whatever. This presents a problem if you're doing that, because you may be offensive. Even feminist jokes don't go well. No, stay off of those. Again, good comments to people, positive things. Let's look at just a little bit of what you might have to encounter, and you may use a little showmanship to do it. I assume that everybody here teaches classes. How many teach classes? Good. Have you ever had this happen to you? Up walks the guy. He said, now, when you do a da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you turn a quarter and then you hand turn and da-da-da-da-da. And I look at him and say, well, kinda. Now, my wife says it's da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then I see the wife coming up. And she said, I believe that this is da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I've got a problem. Now, how do I get out of this? Showmanship, folks. Buffaloes. You're betwixt and between when you do this. Now, when we were raising our kids, Neva would come to me and said, Hillary took my doll and undressed it and put something else on it. And I called Hillary over and I said, Neva said that you took the doll apart. Well, I didn't do it. I said, Hillary said that she didn't do it, that her sister did it, and just repeat what happens. That's one way of getting out of it. My suggestion, if you have that problem, you got those two people standing there, and they're waiting for you to take sides. And the guy is sure that you're going to go to his side, right? I would suggest, at this point, you're going to say, let me get my Bible out. Let's see, mainstream definitions. Let me go through here. Now, what was that called again? Okay, let's just go through here. Yes, here it is right here. Why don't you read that? And you'll settle the argument at this point. You'll get yourself out of it. And I would consider that. Would that be showmanship? I think so, yeah. It's a little showmanship. Well, yeah. See why? Yes. Thank you, sir. So that would be a part of showmanship, and that would be under probably the verbal part of showmanship. Getting into the musical part of it, we've covered a lot of we've had a real good record review here today. Wow, what a record review. Getting into the musical part of it, you may run into situations where you have a theme party. It's a Hawaiian party. So you're going to have to dig out all those Hawaiian numbers that you know and do those. And that comes under the heading of showmanship. You probably will be asked to wear a muumuu that night, maybe, if you're a female caller, or a male caller. Yeah, you've been to Hawaii. Males wear muumuus. Sure. Not you? Oh, you wear buffaloes. Good. There's a whole profile on minds here. We don't want to get into that. Okay, so you have musical themes of digging out all that music, summertime themes, patriotic themes, all those recordings. And I know a lot of you who have those in categories, so you can push a button and there's everything that you need for a patriotic time of the year or Christmas or whatever. So that is a part of musical use within that showmanship thing. We also think of different rhythms. We talked a little bit about it. The Back to Donegal thing was a 6/8 rhythm. That's a nice rhythm to use. Basically, we are 2/4 rhythm people in the square dance world. And also 4/4. 4/4 is used quite a bit. I don't think you did a 4/4 at all. It wasn't a 4/4. A lot of 4/4s are great pieces of music to use, again, for showmanship and so forth. What, you going to dig one out? I just happen to have one here. Don't.
If you're going to suck me in, you need to let me know ahead.
Yeah, don't mess with my program, please. I'll be in charge right now. Yeah. Yeah, I'll be the head buffalo. Here's a very unique, I think, a unique tune. It's kind of a current tune. It's on Tar Heel Records of all things. Anybody know about? Is there anybody here from Tar Heel? Where? Hold up your hand, North Carolina down here. Yeah, let's give them a hand. Tar Heel Records. One that I thought was a unique piece, and it's a 4/4 piece of music, and I'll attempt to do it, folks, with my very limited voice out here. Side space, grand square. If he brings you happiness, then I wish you both the best. Reverse, it's your happiness that matters most of all. Circle to the left, but if he ever leaves you blue, left Alum and come back and promenade or two. I'll be there before the next teardrop falls. Thank you for helping me sing that. Yeah, all right. Hey, good. Now, if you want to do a variation of that thing, maybe a lot of you do it. How many do that? How many use this piece of music? Great tune. Yeah, Freddie Fender. Remember Fred? You remember Freddie Fender? Of course, yeah. Variation of a little showman here. Side space, ready, grand square, see Dakota, see Vade. Alio, Adicie, Dea Carol, Las Mos, Año Dos. Mia sea, Dea Senora. I'll be Okay, that's a good tune. I'm going to buy that record. I really am going to buy that record, yeah. So again, variation of rhythms, 6/8, 2/4, 4/4. I like 4/4. It's a good change. I don't think I'd want a full night of 4/4. I don't think I'd want a full night of 6/8 because that's kind of skippy music to do. But once in a while, why not use a little bit of that music? If you're programming music during the course of the evening, as I think we all know in voice training, that you begin to lose some of your lower notes as you call. You might want to program, and this, when we get into showmanship and programming, we're real close cousins right here. You may want to set up your program so some of the real nice melodic things and deep notes that you want to get might be in the middle of the program, so you have a voice to do that. And maybe as the time goes on during the course of the evening, the higher pitched things that you might want to get into might be at the latter part of the evening. So you might program those pieces of music in that manner. I have a problem. As I call during the course of the evening, I begin to lose all my high or all my low notes. Toughing. I don't know how many here lose some of those low notes as you call. Oh, God bless you. We got people that don't lose them. Maybe I'm losing it in more ways than one. Women use their high notes. Oh, boy. Another thing that you might consider is some of the music you use with the group. We are dealing today with, can I say middle age? Whatever. We're dealing with people who lived in a certain age or a certain period, over 30. I would look at the group and say, we got a group out here tonight where we got some 90-year-olds maybe. We may have some 80-year-olds. We may have some 50-year-olds. I would probably not do rock and roll music with that group. Don't think it would be appropriate. I don't think they'd like it. So you have to kind of look over the group and figure out what might be nice for those people. What would they enjoy? What would they do in their, let's go back to their teen times. What kind of music was going on at that particular time? You might want to select that type music during the course of the evening for those people. And that's not a put down. A little rock and roll along the way doesn't hurt, and a little old-time big band stuff doesn't hurt. We do that variety. We have that variety at our fingertips. It's there, folks. Dig it out, use it. And that would be part of showmanship within the program part of the evening. Let's see. Moving on, folks. We talked about, I guess we did get on the choreo showmanship. We use a variety of music within the pattern that we do. One of the things that I think we have lost it in a lot of ways, I hear guys that get up, put on a singing call, do a patter to it, and call everything with on the plus list the first tip. Now, I'm not sure, and they use 45 minutes of the first part of the program, so everybody sits down on the second tip because they're worn out. That's not good showmanship. It isn't good programming. And this is kind of looking at the downside of it. And I hear this guy call, and he calls pretty much a sight caller. And he uses the singing calls for patter. And he uses the singing calls for singing, of course. But all the music seems to be the same. There's a sameness in the evening of music. And pretty soon there's a sameness in his dance. His choreography turns into sameness. 45 load the boats in one night? Yeah. It's been known, yeah. Would that go in the book of Guinness Book of Records? Hall of Shame. Got it, brother. Hall of Shame. So you might think of each tip being a little different. Maybe spotlight some particular piece of music, some particular piece of choreography within that tip. And maybe at the end of the evening kind of put things together and do a lot of those things together instead of kicking the evening off doing everything on a certain list, and then where do you go from there? There's no variation. Within a group, there's a warm-up period, probably the first, I would say, 3 to 4 tips within the first part of the evening, because you have some people that come in late to a dance. They don't get in that very first tip. So for the first 3 tips of the evening, you're probably warming up people, getting people used to your voice, used to the hall, and you're getting used to your being with them and calling for them. Regular groups. How many here call for regular clubs on a regular basis? It's great. It's a wonderful way to go. But they get bored quick. You have to have a lot of things to get by. And if you're a road caller, you can probably take a couple hot numbers and do it during the course of the evening, and people really like that. But if you go home and do that with a regular club, and then you go back the next week and do it again, they say, he's doing that one again, huh? We've heard that last week. So it's a little different ball game with that regular group than it is with a road group. You can go out on the road and do a lot of show things and get by with a lot, but not with the local group. The local group go, ho-hum, we're back again. Yeah, here he is, ready to call. Showmanship. In those, again, you want to highlight some figures during the course of that tip. Highlight some nice music during the course of that tip to give that program variance and variation during the course of your program. You can do this by maybe doing a lot of callers call it, well, it's a gimmick. A variation of the tip might be a Siamese square, kaleidoscope square, progressive squares, exploding squares, tandem squares. All those things are available, and it's not too bad to do one of those during the course of the evening. I got to get a plug in because on our 60s night, when is that 60s night? Tonight, we're going to attempt a progressive and an exploding square. And I'm the sucker that's going to do it. I hope. I've never had one work yet, but tonight may be the night. Buffaloes. My time is running out. I'm going to turn this back. I want to thank Mike for a great job. Nice hand for Mike. Nice hand for Al. And John.
I want to touch on 2 things really quick. First off, if you don't communicate, if you work with a round dance instructor at your dances and you don't communicate with them, you are really missing the boat. They bring a whole different set of rhythms and music to the dance, and if you don't coordinate with them, you're going to end up fighting yourselves all the way through the dance. You know, there is no way any of us are going to follow Steve and Edie really well. And yet, Hallelujah is a really popular round. There's no way we're going to do a number of other things following some of the music they use. And at the same time, if you've been trying to build a crescendo and they do 2 waltzes in a row, it's not going to help your build. Both of you have to work together, and the only way to work together is communicate. So that's one of the real keys. If you don't help to try to control the music at your dance, and not just your own, but to work with the round dance instructor you're working with, then you really miss the boat. The other thing is that I'm a very avid cook, and doing and composing and showcasing and so forth is just like cooking. If you put oregano on everything, everything will taste the same. When you compose an excellent meal, you don't just go for the taste, but it's also the appearance, it's also a number of other factors, the aroma. Everything works together to make that eating enjoyable and something that you remember. To make the showcase presentation memorable, it's not just what you sound like vocally. It's all the other factors that John and Jerry and Al have talked about here. That the total package is what makes the memorable experience for the dancer to leave with. If we have any questions of the audience before we break for lunch, yes, please come to the mic because we would like your microphone words here as opposed to long gaps on the tape. Where's the buffalo? Yes, sir.
On the way up here, coming through Kentucky, I ran across the buffalo. I'm serious. I'm Bill Payton from Birmingham, Alabama. And on the way up here, I was coming through Kentucky. And out in the pasture, a bunch of racehorses and plugs and what have you. And in another pasture right there next to it was a buffalo. And for any of you that travel that 65 going from south to north, I'm originally from Louisville. And I make a lot of trips to Louisville from Birmingham. And the buffalo used to be at E-Town. So evidently he's been sold and sent over here in West Kentucky. And he's out there running up and down through the field. That's what I thought. Thank you. There's the seeds.
Yes, sir.
The seeds are growing.
One other thing was, as I heard Jerry talking, I had the good fortune of being over in Germany for 5 years when I was in the military. And one of the things that we used as a showmanship gimmick was that one of my dancers wrote out a very simple call in German. And I selected Sweet Georgia Brown because that music is known throughout the world. And you play Sweet Georgia Brown in any country in the world, they know it because of the Harlem Globetrotters. And I would do a simple singing call 4 times through. The first time in English, the second time just a couple of words of German, the third time all German, the fourth time I would just kind of prompt it with kind of guttural language, and they all did all the figures. It was right and left through and the ladies' chain, sides right and left through, the same ladies' chain, all join hands, circle left, swing corner, and promenade. But the effect of using music with which they were familiar, and they would participate with it, and to call it in their native language was very effective as we would open bowling alleys or restaurants, and they loved it.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was.
Flip it up. Flip it up. That's as good as it gets.
I'm Pat Kell from Wisconsin, and I wanted to comment about the selection of the songs for the age group that you are calling. When he mentioned about using the songs from back in the 50s or 60s, if they were teenagers, then it makes them feel young, because those are the songs when they were young, so they feel young if you call those. Calling to teenagers now is a little difficult, and I would like a little help on what songs to select for them. I'm not very sure of that. We do have some teenagers in square dancing, and we've been getting more and more of them in. And pulling out the old line dances from years ago does work because they're new to them. So that's all I wanted to comment.
My daughter is an avid square dancer in the D.C. area, and there's a large teen community there. What's interesting, they just got done with their festival there in March. One of the comments was not so much is that they cared what kind of music you did as much as not repeating it all the time. They heard, American Pie 6 times in the course of one day. They heard whatever the other latest and greatest thing that came off the network, because every caller came in and expected they wanted to hear this particular number. I think if it's just simply high energy, it doesn't really matter what environment it came from. If you will look at one of the best known movies that occurred in December and so forth was What Women Want, which features Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Dean Martin, and that was a top-selling album across the board. The teens were out there buying it because they were quality performances. And so I think if you approach them that not necessarily that they're teenagers, but there are square dancers that are teenagers, that if you treat them like square dancers and for a good time, that you will always have the right choice of music.
Jerry recorded a song many years ago called I Wish I Could Sprechen Sie Deutsch. And anybody that knows anything about the German language knows that that is not correct grammar. Ich kann Deutsch sprechen, but sprechen Sie Deutsch means nothing. I can get away with doing that song in Germany, but a German can't.
Betsy Yada from New Jersey. I have a couple of different comments. One, to answer Pat, to go further with the music for younger people. There is absolutely nothing that I have currently in my record case that would be new to teenagers. Now, some of the stuff that they may be presenting in the techno music, it might be interesting. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is what is the trend. And the trend is there is a big upswing for young people in swing dancing. So the same music from the big band sound that would work for some of the older people will also work for the teenagers because it is, again, quality performance and something that they're getting into. That's one point. Another point that I've developed, we were talking, somebody was talking earlier about timing and delivering the side space grand square so that people can dance on the downbeat. That's about the only thing we have left from some of the traditional timing in a lot of modern square dancing. And I'm not saying to go back to traditional timing, but it is sometimes worth it with some of the long introductions on singing calls to practice your delivery so that you can say something, because I like to flow into teacup chain. Say, walk around your corner, turn your partner left, head lady center, teacup chain, and then they hit the downbeat and you sing. And there are singing calls with long enough introductions so that you can do that if you practice it at home. And I think that's a worthwhile showmanship technique. I don't know if the dancers know why they enjoy it, but they do seem to enjoy it.
The key you can get from all of this is that approaching with a strategy and a philosophy is the key to showmanship. Analyzing what you do, figuring out a strategy and approach to be able to sell it, and don't make it a flat line is the way to effectively sell any performance behind the microphone. Lunch is at 12:15. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you.